Shalom friends, it's been a while. Erin has asked if I would do a video talking with you about Maddie's hospitalization and what it was like for me as her mother. I will do that. Friday, Maddie was completely fine. She told me in the afternoon that she had a headache, and so I told her to have some, I had her have some ginger root for the headache. Now, I'll get to that later, but it worked out really for her benefit, for our benefit, that she did have that ginger root. So that was that. And then in the evening, she out of nowhere says that she feels like she's gonna pass out. And so I had her sit down in the living room and relax. And then she went to the bathroom. And I asked Aaron to go check on her because he just came home from work. And he found her on the floor throwing up and completely out of it. So that was really scary. He took her to the bathroom and cleaned her off, and then I helped to dress her, and we discussed whether or not she should go to the hospital. She was not communicating at all. She was almost unconscious. Mad sleepwalks, and so it kind of reminded me of how she behaves when she sleepwalks. Although when she sleepwalks, she still mumbles and she wasn't talking at all. But she definitely was out of it. And so we do not take it lightly going to the hospital. It's not something that we do unless we feel like it is absolutely necessary. So Aaron asked me if she should go, and I told him that if I wasn't concerned about what they would do to her, that I would take her to the hospital in the state that she is in. And me saying that, it wasn't really saying, I wasn't expressing like medically what are they going to do to her, but we do know, like, once you go into the hospital with your children, even if you do have rights as a parent, they can walk all over those rights, and you have to determine what rights you're going to fight for. Because if you make them angry, it's like this card they have in their back pocket that they're going to call CPS on you, and this is what hospitals do. So we've experienced with some of our births that we've had, some of our babies, like we've had to allow the hospital staff to just do procedures to the children that we didn't approve of, but we didn't really have a choice. So it's just, we just feel like once we're in the hospital, it's like this medical prison. So it's a relief whenever we're out of there. But she needed attention, and we did not know what to do to help her because we didn't know what the problem was. So Aaron took her to the hospital. Aaron takes the kids to the hospital usually. It's just really stressful for me, and I would rather stay home with the children and have Aaron take the child to the hospital. So that's the way that we've always functioned. So he told me after a couple hours that they're going to transfer her to another hospital where they have a children's department. And so that's when things got hairy. They knew already that Mad's sodium was extremely low. It wasn't clear to us, though, that her low sodium would put her in the state that she was in. When Aaron got to the second hospital, he called me and he told me that they would not allow Aaron in the room with her, and they said they have to calm her down while they get her settled in, and then he can come and be with her. And that made me really upset, because we do not ever leave our children in the hospital without our eyes on them. We always have our eyes on our kids. We want to know what is happening to them at every moment, and we don't want anything happening to them that we're not aware of. So that was really upsetting to me, and it made no sense at all to me that they, as strangers, think they're going to calm down our daughter, who was freaking out. But he had no choice, as far as we knew, and he could have made a fit about it, but then we were concerned that they were going to call security on him, and what else would come of that. So he waited for them to allow him in the room. And that is really upsetting, to consider that there was that period of time that Aaron and I, well, Aaron was there most of the time, that we weren't with her, because we believe that they did an exam on her, and that is completely violating Madeline, and it's violating us as parents, like our rights. So that's really, that bugs us. So maybe I'm jumping around a bit. I don't really know what to say about it all, and I don't really even want to talk about it. But it was scary. It was scary from the get-go. I would say, for me, I felt scared. I wondered what was causing it. Is she gonna get better? What the heck is going on? And I wondered, like, is Maddie gonna be brain damaged? Is she gonna die? I mean, we just don't know what was going on. It was horrible. So Aaron had an extremely rough night with her that first night at the hospital, with her and the hospital staff. It was horrible. For me, it was upsetting to hear that Madeline was like she was yelling and she was upset, and it was upsetting to me, like when Aaron told me that they did the spinal draw, and the hospital staff, they just, right in front of Aaron too, they just laughed about it, and like when she was freaking out, I don't know what else to say, they just laughed and said, oh, it's gonna be a long day, isn't it? Like, completely insensitive to Madeline and to Aaron. Not even pretending that they care when Madeline is scared and we don't know what's going on with her, and they're just laughing like it's a big fat joke. And it made me think about when I had our Rennie, baby number 8. I had to get an emergency C-section when I was 8 months along. I just went in for my appointment, and they realized his heart rate was twice as high as what it should have been. And the cardiologist decided that they need to take him out of the belly. So when I was waiting to have my C-section, the hospital staff that was going to perform the C-section, they were just hanging around, shooting the breeze, just laughing it up. And here I am, I'm a midwifery patient, so obviously I lean towards doing things as naturally as possible, and I'm about to get cut open, and I don't even know if my baby's gonna live or die. And they just were having a good old time. So, and it also made me think about another story that I actually just listened to recently, where this woman was in the hospital with her husband, and he was in the ICU unit, and she witnessed the hospital staff, the nurses, cheering every time a patient would die. And so we were experiencing really like the hospital staff like just being so cold towards Maddie and towards Aaron. It was terrible. And we knew that Aaron needed to be there because when it comes down to it, Aaron is her dad, and Aaron cares for her and is concerned for her much more than the hospital staff is. So that was that. I came to see Maddie that first morning in the ICU, and I brought her flowers, and they told me I can't bring flowers into her on the ICU floor, and that really was upsetting to me because I know for me, when I have flowers after I have the baby in the hospital, it really lifts up my spirits a lot when I'm in this dreary, white, boring room, to have some beautiful flowers and just to smell them. And so I really wanted to bring her flowers, but they told me I couldn't. And I noticed that when people would greet me, they would say, "Hi, how are you?" And I thought that is just the dumbest thing to ask somebody whose child is in the ICU. But anyways. I'm thankful that, God's hand, he was at work, and he took care of Matt and Aaron and me. I brought food for Aaron. And when Madeline was allowed to eat, he fed her the food that I brought for him because they kept on skipping her meals. I don't know why. They wouldn't bring her food even though she had the okay to eat, and she hasn't eaten for a couple days. But I was purposeful to bring healing food for Erin, and I brought food for her once I knew she was able to eat. And I was glad that she was able to eat the food that I brought, that it was allowed in the hospital. So one of the things I learned, I was trying to learn about what to bring for her headache, what kind of food. So I was reading about headaches some more because at the point she had a really bad headache from her spinal draw that they did. And I was reading about ginger, and I read that ginger root actually decreases swelling in the brain. And I thought that that was interesting because the hospital staff seemed really surprised that she had no swelling in the brain. And so they said, well, this must have been something that started not that particular day, but it was gradual. That was their reasoning to why she didn't have swelling in the brain. I don't know what the situation was. Nobody knows really. But anyways, I do think that it was good for her to get the ginger root, which decreases swelling in the brain, and that it was really like a God thing that he ordained for her to have that. And even when we're not aware of it, that the Holy Spirit still leads us. I'm not quite sure what to speak about next with her. We are really grateful and relieved that she was getting better, and when she was able to talk to us and communicate with us, it was like a relief, obviously. Thankfully, we did not know when Maddie was not her normal self. We didn't know that there were suspicions, I guess you could say, towards our family. And we thought that Aaron had a sitter to be there with Madeline if he had to go use the bathroom, but we came to realize that Aaron had a sitter because they thought Aaron was an abuser and they were not going to leave Aaron alone with Maddie. So it was God's perfect timing that we found that out when we did, and not any sooner, because it would have been too hard for us to handle the worry that comes with looking after Madeline and wondering what is to come, and then also to have this understanding that they think Aaron is an abuser because there's a lot that comes with that. We understood that they weren't just going to release Madeline to us when she got better. Oh my word. Unless they felt convinced that she is safe. So Aaron's mom was flying in on Tuesday morning, I believe it was, and so we found out on Monday in the evening. It was made very clear to us this situation and why there's a sitter with Aaron. And it seems so nonsensical because Aaron was there, like, giving his everything to take care of her and not sleeping, and the energy that he spent to do that, and they think that he's a bad dad. I can't even wrap my head around it, honestly. And when Aaron and I, we couldn't even talk on the phone about it or anything. We had no privacy at all. We couldn't talk about Madeline's situation. Whatever we talked about, there was always the sitter that was in the room. And so as I was driving on Monday evening to see Maddie, we were texting back and forth, and that was like the only way we could communicate privately. When I realized that the situation for what it was, I was just so sick to my stomach. Like I just felt like I was gonna throw up. And I was just really upset. So, but Aaron, he was like able to, calm me down. And one thing that he told me was, he reminded me of a song we have from Jason Upton, and I just really appreciate Jason Upton. He's a worship singer, and he really has ministered to me a lot lately. Let's say like in the last half a year, he's really ministered to me a lot, and I know Aaron as well. And so one thing he said was that Jason Upton says in one of his songs, he says that when Jesus was in the garden and Peter cut off the man's ear, that Jesus said to Peter, "Do you think this cup my Father has for me, I shouldn't drink it? And this is a cup to be received from my Father." And I actually wanted to play that for you really quickly. It's just super fast because I think like just to hear Jason say it and to hear his emotion, like it's really moving. So this is super quick, okay?
Peter, do you think this cup my Father has for me, do you think I shouldn't drink it? That's what he asked Peter. That's freedom. To live completely abandoned to the Father, that you can look your betrayer in the eye and say, "Oh, you're a cup to be received from my Father."
So Aaron told me that this is a cup to be received from our Father, and we need to drink it. And we need to do so in a way that is honoring to God and that brings Him glory, and that we cannot fight evil with evil. So that's obviously good to be reminded of. So Aaron took me aside when I got there. We explained to Maddie that we're only going to be gone for 10 minutes and we're going to leave her with a sitter. And he had a conversation with me telling me about how he spoke to the pediatrician, and she wants Madeline to speak to a shrink, a psychiatrist, because she's concerned that Madeline has been abused. Although the pediatrician wasn't completely honest, and she didn't say that she suspects that there was abuse in our family, she said she is concerned that she was abused over the summer. So she told Aaron that that would be in Madeline's best interest, and Aaron told her that he understands that she signs the papers to release Madeline from the hospital. So it's something that he will talk to me about and will pray about, but he doesn't agree with her that it would be best for Maddie to speak to a psychiatrist. And he was very respectful to the doctor, but he told her that it would not be in Madeline's best interest to speak to a psychiatrist. And I honestly can't even imagine Madeline having to go through that. Like, that would be traumatizing. And the poor girl has been through so much already. So that's not something that we can't just, for the sake of having an easy road to travel, like, okay, maybe we'll get out of the hospital without any problems as long as she speaks to a psychiatrist. We can't just allow that to happen, because that's not good for Madeline. So we needed to fight it and see what came of it. So when I left that evening, I met the next sitter that was there to watch Aaron. And Aaron and her, actually, things went really well. She is a believer in Christ, a follower of Yeshua, and so it really was God's providence that he ordained for her to be there and to encourage Aaron, because he really needed encouragement. And so they encouraged each other and spoke truth to each other from the scripture and prayed with each other. And then Aaron prayed over Maddie, who was still dealing with this horrible headache, and she wasn't able to sit up at all because of her headache, which was from the spinal draw that they did. They took so much fluid from her. So that was a concern, because the doctors decided that she was acting unusual. She was just laying around, which to me seems nonsensical considering what she just went through. And they knew perfectly well that she had this horrible migraine. Anyways, so he prayed over Madeline, and he sent me a text. It was about, I think, 2 in the morning, and he told me that the sitter that is there is a believer, and that she has been just encouraging him, and that he prayed for Madeline, and as soon as he prayed for Madeline, and she bounced right up out of bed, and she walked to the bathroom, and she was all giddy, and her headache was completely gone, and it truly was a miracle. And Aaron texted me and told me all of that, and so that was something that I needed, because I couldn't even sleep. I was so worried and upset, and so I really felt like that was, God just reassuring us that everything's going to be okay. And then Aaron's mom came Tuesday morning, and we really needed her at that point. We did not think that we were going to need her. She wanted to come, and we understood that, and so of course she could come, but we kind of felt like we didn't really need anybody. But then once it became clear to us the accusations that were being cast upon us, we were just really upset. And so just to have Aaron's mom there, that was really encouraging for our spirits. And I know it was good for the kids as well. So we went to the hospital. I picked her up from the airport. We went to the hospital, and we I didn't stay long. The pediatrician was there, the one who spoke to Aaron and the one who had the authority to release Maddie or not release her. And she spoke to me and to Aaron and Aaron's mom, and she was just trying to, I don't even know, like, she was just asking us a bunch of questions, and like she asked us some questions like, do we punish Madeline by withholding food from her? Which of course we do not. So she was trying to find information. So she was commenting that Maddie seemed to be getting better, and that if all the tests came back without any problems, that she should be able to go home. So it seemed like that was going to happen, but we just didn't really, nothing was positive. We didn't really know. So the following day, I believe the pediatrician actually called me that day on Tuesday, but I missed the call. And so she called on Wednesday, and I spoke to her on the phone, and she clearly wanted to speak to me alone without Aaron around, and she was at that time honest enough with me to tell me that she wondered if Aaron abused it. Well, she didn't say it in these words. She was honest enough to get the point to me that she wonders if there is abuse going on in our family. And she talked about how Aaron was snuggling with Madeline in bed, and he seems very nurturing. And that's unusual. When the girl couldn't even sit up because her head hurt her so bad. And it's not like we have a bed in the middle of our living room or something weird like that. So I was very clear to her, and I was very firm when I spoke to her, and I told her there is no sexual abuse that goes on in our family. There is no physical abuse that goes on in our family. There is no violence. And I told her there's also no emotional abuse that goes on in our family. We do not put each other down with our words. We try to uplift one another and encourage and respect one another. And I just explained to her that Aaron is more of a nurturer than I am, and I spend my nurturing energy with the nursing baby. And so Aaron, I told her, and this is true, like Aaron, he tells the kids, you know, with your mom, she doesn't really snuggle a whole lot. If you want a hug, go in there, get in, get out, give her a hug, and then you can come to me and you can get a longer hug. And that's just the way that it is. And in cases like Maddie's, like, you know, I got in bed and I snuggled with her when we were in the hospital. But in general, Aaron is more of a nurturer. But he was raised in more of a nurturing family than I was. And so that's just more natural for him. So I think that it was really good that I did speak to her and made it abundantly clear to her as much as I possibly could that, you know, just because we're a large family, because it seemed like that if we could piece everything together, what all the doctors were saying to Aaron, that because we live our lives differently, that's what the one doctor told Aaron, that people are casting judgment on us. So I got to talk to her and talk to the pediatrician, and hopefully, and reassure her that, you know, we are a good family and we care for our kids. And it really, whenever I think about it, it doesn't really make any sense for them to be concerned about us. Like, we feed our kids healthy food, and that's really important to us, and they were aware of that. And it makes no sense that we care about our children's health if we allow or even abuse our children. So shortly after I spoke to the pediatrician on Wednesday, Aaron's mom and I went to the hospital, and I wanted to be purposeful to get there when the pediatrician was there because I wanted to speak to her a little while longer and have Aaron's mom speak to her and tell her about how, you know, Aaron's always been a nurturer and he's been raised in a nurturing family, and for me to speak to her and tell her, you know, I was raised in a different kind of family, to just really put my mind at ease that I did what I could do to reassure her, I guess. So that was Wednesday. Maddie came home on Wednesday night. She was able to come home, and so that was a big relief. And it was really special to watch Madeline greet all of her siblings when she came home. That was really, really meaningful. Because as parents, one thing that we really appreciate is just how the children appreciate one another. And it's not every moment of every day, but at the end of the day, the kids, you know, they love each other and they appreciate each other. And so Madeline came home, and each of the children gave her a really long hug, and it was just super sweet. And Moshe, our 1-year-old, he was hitting Madeline as if to tell her that, you know, why did you leave me? You shouldn't have left me all that time. So the following day, Madeline, she spent a lot of time with our 1-year-old Moshe, and she told me that she told Moshe that she said to him, "Don't worry, Moshe, I'm not going to leave you again." So Thursday, Maddie actually, she had some throwing up going on, and she was crying a lot, saying that her belly hurt her, and that scared us. And when we considered what she just went through, we thought we maybe should bring her back to the hospital. So that was disappointing, disheartening. But we decided to wait to have her eat something else because we saw that she calmed down when she was giving her grandma a hug goodbye. She gave her a really long hug and she was calm. And so we decided that we'll give her something little to eat to see if she can keep it down or if she does continue to throw up. And so Aaron gave her small amounts of food, and she was able to keep it down, and so we decided that there wasn't a need to go back to the hospital, and so we were so thankful for that. And we were just enjoying being together as a family and visiting with Aaron's mom. And on Friday, Aaron took Madeline, no, not on Friday, she had to get some blood work on Friday just to make sure that things were okay, and it turned out fine, everything was fine. But we took her the following week to the pediatrician as a follow-up, and the pediatrician spoke to Aaron for quite a long time. They had a really good conversation, and the pediatrician, this is our pediatrician, our family pediatrician, she told Aaron that she was glad that she has been able to get to know us for a long period of time so that she can defend us. And she did speak to the pediatrician on the phone who was in charge of releasing Madeline from the hospital, and there was the concern of abuse in CPS brought up to our family pediatrician, and our family pediatrician right away, she told the pediatrician from the hospital that, you know, that we're a good family and good parents and there's no reason to be concerned about any of that kind of stuff. And she also told Aaron, that our family pediatrician told Aaron that, you know, whenever there's abuse that is going on, that there's always signs that you can point to and you can see. And she's known us for 4 years, and so she was just talking about how, you know, she doesn't see any signs, and also she is certain that they didn't see any signs at the hospital. She even told Aaron we should have brought all of our children in so they can meet our children, who we didn't want to bring our children into the hospital. We don't want them to pick up any infections and get sick. So I was really, really grateful that our pediatrician stood up for our family, and it's something that Erin and I have actually had conversations about, that we hope that she would do just that if the opportunity ever came. And it's something that we as a large family feel like we need to be aware of, that we stand out from all the other families on our street, from all the other families at the hospital, because we are a large family. And whenever there's any news in the media about large families, it's negative. And the way that people's brains work is, if they see another large family, right away they tie those two things together. I get told constantly, oh, you should have your own reality show. People know nothing about me and they think I should have a reality show because the only thing they know is that there's a large family who has a reality show, and so because I'm a large family, I should have a reality show. And so if you hear negative news about large families, right away you tie that to another large family that you know nothing about. So we understand that there is risk that comes with having a large family, and not being able to blend in like everybody else can do. And so we're grateful that our pediatrician stood up for us, and it brings me to consider, like, the reason we even have like a relationship with our pediatrician. She knows us well because with our Rennie, number 8, he was an NICU baby. He was in the NICU for a month, and after that we would go very regularly to the pediatrician with Rennie. And I was going at one point, like, I was going probably weekly because he had to get weigh-ins because his weight was really scary. And I brought the children with me most of the time, actually all the time really, so she got to see all the kids. And I look at Rennie's situation, and the verse in the Bible, the scripture that says that all things work out together for the good of those who love him and are called according to his purpose, I tie that to this. I could see that with Rennie, whatever he went through, his physical problem that he went through, which caused us to go to the pediatrician a lot, that opened up a relationship between us and our pediatrician. And so God used that to defend us later on with this situation with Madeline. So that was one thing that I took out from this. But as it was all done with, I just, like, one thing that I think is really important to be mindful of is to be grateful and to live in the moment and not take for granted your loved ones. Madeline was perfectly fine in the morning, and then in the afternoon she just had a headache. It was really no big deal. And then in the evening time, she's almost comatose, and it was out of nowhere. And thank the good Lord that she's better now, but our life could have I mean, like, our world was turned upside down for a week. Not only considering the health of our daughter, but also considering the power that CPS and that goes not only CPS but the government has over our freedom, which we don't really have. CPS, they don't always, I do believe that sometimes they take children out of bad situations, but I know of 2 particular situations where they made decisions that are very questionable and, in my personal opinion, were very bad decisions and not in the children's best interest by any means. And that's just the fact of the matter, that CPS does have the authority to take your children away from you, and if they do indeed do that, hopefully it's just a temporary thing that they do, that you can get them back, but you just don't know what life is going to bring. It's up to them. It doesn't matter if you're a good parent or not a good parent. It's up to them to cast judgment and decide. So we are stronger because of this, and it was a fear of mine to deal with the threat of CPS and children being taken away, and I had to face it. And I see that God, He was faithful, and when things were, I believe, at the point where we handled all that we were capable of handling, He stepped in and He changed the situation around. So we are just very thankful for His goodness and His faithfulness, and our intentions are always to obey Him. And I've talked about, and Aaron, we've talked about, like, how we don't use birth control. It's something that God has made clear to us, that for our family, we are to allow Him to choose the number of children that we have. And with that, we now have 10 kids. And so we take our daughter to the hospital, and they look at us funny and make it much harder than it should have been, the whole hospital stay. But we will continue to obey God and trust God, because He is our Master and our Savior, and we just cannot do anything else. We don't want to be slaves to Satan, slaves to this world. We would rather, like Paul says, a bond servant to Yahushua. And this life is just temporary. And so we're not living for this life. We're living for what comes after this life. So that is all. Soon, hopefully, I will do a birth story about Esther, because that's a really special story. But not right now. Shalom, friends.